Hello and welcome to Grinding Meeting. Number 17, Practical Psychology and Used Cars. The extreme field of view on in Booty Bay is kind of cool. And I'm going back to using the intro. The YouTube intake server has been a little buggy and I don't like starting my videos apologizing for that. So I'm going back to the intro at least for now. No. There we go. So I bought a car. And I guess there's something I want to address first. And it's the whole status and vehicle thing, and it's a real thing. I mean, I remember referencing, I don't know how long ago, a parking lot study. And the main point of the parking lot study was that if people know that someone's waiting for the spot they're in, if they know someone's waiting, they take longer than if they don't know someone's waiting or if no one's waiting. But another thing in that study that was interesting was, and this is from 97, so it probably hasn't changed that much, that if it's two guys and the guy who has the spot, who's getting ready to leave, has a car that's worth significantly less than the guy waiting for the spot, the guy in the spot will get out faster than he would have otherwise. So car is definitely status. And funny, I told somebody I work with that, and he's like, well, now it makes sense. Because even though it's kind of late model and it's got some issues and stuff, he has this little Porsche SUV that, it wasn't terribly expensive to get. I mean, if they just looked at the freaking blue book on it, they'd realize that, most of the cars in the parking lot are worth more than that. But to a guy, it's like a Porsche, And he's like, after I got that Porsche, like all the supervisors started treating me nicer. And, you have to understand the scale here. By nicer means they treat you like a human being that's, competent. But yeah, the guys are very much about the status of their vehicle. I couldn't possibly care less. I mean, I guess I could care less. And it's not that I don't care at all. It's just I care so little. Or there's so many other things I care about more than that. What am I thinking? That it just doesn't even rate. Basically the strategy for cars is I watch mistakes other people make and I try not to take those mistakes. And financing a car is, sometimes it's necessary, but I actually use a Warcraft analogy for things like this. It's like they're money dots. They're damage over time. When you finance something, when you agree to like a monthly fee on something, you want a service, that has a monthly fee or something like that. Like every one of those things, like it just stacks up on you, and it's like a warlock. Oh, shoot, I already did these guys. Oh, yeah. Individually, those dots don't seem like much, but by the time they got a few on you, it's like, oh crap, and it's kind of like that financially. So, even if you have to get a much crappier car. Typically, especially if you're like working in a factory, if you're working in an office, that kind of status has a much more tangible effect on how you're doing in the office. So I don't want to I don't want to speak for those environments I haven't spent a lot of time in. I just understand that if you have in many offices, if you just have like a garbage car, it's going to affect how people treat you. But in a factory, it's just not like that. Well, not as much like that. It's still there, obviously. So I try to find a car between like $2,000 and like $5,000, something that's been really well maintained. It's a particular model that, I suppose I should look and see where I'm going here. I was going the other way. No. Now listen to how smart I am about buying cars after I've been running the wrong way. Choosing among models that just have a really strong history of being reliable, and trying to find those cars, even if they have higher mileage, typically you can tell a lot by driving them how hard those miles have been. And if I can get, if I can pay $2,000 for a car and then drive it for like 4 years and only put like another $1,000 into that car to keep it going, it in the long run, it puts you ahead of the game. It is financially, instead of, financing, heck, a new car for like 20 grand. And then, I know that there's a strong argument of they cover everything. If anything goes wrong, they pay, you pay for it. But like, that's a massive money dot, the way I look at it. And if your job isn't that dependent on, status based on, clothes and vehicle and stuff like that, pragmatically, it's probably not worth it. It was funny because I've had my last car was in such horrible shape. So many people were giving me crap about the car, and it just kind of vindicated my my belief that the car status thing is still super strong. Because I just couldn't care less. I always found it funny, people find, oh, what's going on with your car there? Like they're doing that because if they were in my situation and someone was doing that to them, they'd be, where the hell is that thing at? When someone was doing that to them, it would really bother them. People are always attacked by the vectors of their own vulnerability. Well, not always, but often. So the car I got, and it's funny because I was been without a car for like 3 weeks, and that's like the longest I've ever gone. I've always been like super paranoid about it, and got to get my transportation, kind of, I don't know, just more worried about it than was probably healthy. And a lot of times I just wanted to have a car again, and I wasn't particularly careful about my purchases, and I didn't really get screwed too badly too often, but this time, like 3 weeks without a car, that was, and it was a good exercise for me because I don't like imposing on people. I don't like, trying to get rides from people or trying to negotiate that or trying to get help from people, because I just don't like imposing on people. But that's not all of it, of course. It's always a constellation of drives. Where the hell am I going? I am looking for Bagthera. Oh, I think it's a panther that's right in the middle over here. And I was trying to buy from dealerships, but... Ooh, elite. Well, this should be fun. Oh, people killed stuff here. I should probably kite them over that bridge. Oh no, this is not the way. There's stuff up here. Don't reset, don't reset, don't reset. Uh-oh. Oh, god damn it. Stupid keyboard shortcuts. Well, that wasn't so bad. And I'm currently 39. I got I typically prefer to buy from dealerships, just because you have a little more recourse, because they have a reputation, their reputation matters, to some degree. More than just some Joe Schmo, anyway. But this happened like a couple days before Black Friday. As near as I could tell, except for like one or two, like, lost leader, get people into the showroom type cars, that they just put up as a as a sacrifice, just to get people in the door. Other than that, they cleared out their inventory of like every car under like $5,000. Just sent them all to auction because they didn't. People needed, I don't know. I worked in a dealership, so I kind of understand that a little bit better, which also helps when you're negotiating with those guys because they all act like, oh yeah, the old days when dealerships were all sleazy and they'd sell you junkers and do all kinds of. It's like, you're saying that kind of stuff doesn't happen anymore. The obvious stuff goes away. The insidious doesn't go anywhere. It just becomes more subtle and abstracted. Like. Well, I mean, they can still do like things that seem like they should be illegal when they're financing vehicles, but that depends on your state a bit. So I actually went to a private seller, and I've actually had pretty good luck with private sellers. When you're dealing with a private seller, it's almost more about the person than the car, because if there's anything obvious wrong with the car when you're driving it around, you should be able to notice that things aren't quite right if you have some experience with cars, especially if you have some experience with junker cars, like because there's some things that you like this car has a rear wheel bearing that's just at the point where the harmonics are just picking up a little bit, and if I was going to be freeway driving this car, driving like I don't know 60-mile round trip every day, this would be a problem in a matter of, I don't know, a few months probably. But I drive like an old lady, and I don't drive far, and I don't drive often. That's something that really probably won't have to be addressed for me for like, could be years. Just because a lot of the damage is done when you get up to that high speed and you just stay at that high speed. Or, constant stopping and starting like a lot for each mile you go, like suburban driving. But if you're out, where the traffic isn't quite as bad and you're not going on the freeway for long periods of time, a well-maintained car can go for a while. Like my last car I got for $1,200, and I probably put another $1,200 into it over the span of, had to be close to 4 years. And that's the one where I was driving it. It's like it had a few things that were going to fail. And it was probably not the safest of me, but I had to know, was the clutch going to finally go out? Was that tie rod going to go? There were a couple other things, but it went, and I feel like I got every freaking dime out of that car. And that was a Kia Spectra 2006. Nice little car. I don't like the gear ratios on the manual transmission. Like when I first started driving stick, it was pretty much all standard, so like if you're in first gear at 10 miles an hour, you're at 2000 RPMs. If you're in second gear at 20 miles an hour, you're at 2000 RPMs. And if you're in third gear at 30 miles an hour, you're at 2000, so at 2000 RPMs times, at 2000 RPMs, you just, the gear you're in times 10. Nice simple ratio. And it means you don't have to shift as often. But the Kia Spectra had it's like a motorcycle transmission. It's like you're barely hitting like 20 or like 22 miles an hour, and you're at like 6,000 RPMs, like in first gear. It's like, Jesus Christ. So it makes it appear to have, and technically does have more horsepower or torque or whatever. It gets the car moving faster, but it's like, it's a lot harder on the clutch and harder on your passengers too. It's funny if you've been driving stick by yourself for a while and you kind of what you're going to do, so you can kind of lean into everything, and it's unconscious, so you don't really realize it. And then you have your first passenger in a while, and you see their head whipping around. It's like, oh yeah, they don't know. Let me not drive like an ass. But I'm not gonna say how much, but I got within my range. I got a 2007 Honda Accord, and I got it from a private seller. AutoTrader and Cars.com seems like pretty good places to go look. There's, like any website like that, there's some sleazy stuff, like the dealership saying, oh, we do home test drives and home delivery. But I'm unless you're buying a new car, they're not going to waste their time on you. It's just, they have to make a certain amount of money to go through that inconvenience. Otherwise, you'll just get excuses. So I thought, oh, that's cool. I can just have them bring the car to me. As long as it's not crap, I'll take it. And even offering over what they were asking to do this for the car, you just got the runaround and upsell. So it's like, okay, screw you guys. I suppose I should do stuff. Yeah, that works. There was something about his... Oh, that guy's neat. There's something about the ad, and this was on cars.com. And I'm going to tell you, the guy diligently... I went to look up, because I thought about doing this as a topic. So, like, right after as soon as I got home after buying the car, I wanted to capture what he said so I could, quote him for like, stream or something. And he had like diligently already taken the listing down, like, like immediately after he sold it. Like, and if you know anything about like buying stuff like that, like it seems like half the time when you're calling people, I sold that. It's like, well, why is the listing still up? So that'll give you a hint as the type of person I was dealing with. The sense that I got, first he knew a lot about the car. Like, you'll have like a model like an Accord, but then they'll have like roughly the same body style for a few years and then they'll change it up. Well, those individual sub models, I guess you could call it, each have names. And he said in the thing that this was the last year of that particular sub model, which is a good thing by itself. It means that, like, say if they did the same sub model for like 4 years, and you get the last year of it, you have like 3 years of beta testers in front of you. They tend to get a lot of the stuff worked out. They tend to be the most reliable is the last year of I wish I knew the term, but I'm going to call it submodel. So that's good. But what's even better is the fact that he knew that. Which means that he's been looking through the specs in the car, that he's been doing, most likely doing his own maintenance. The other thing that was in the listing was that he had to get rid of it, and the phrasing he had to get rid of it, I have to get rid of it, combined with I have too many cars, said by no man ever unless under duress. So initially I was like, okay, there's a good chance here that his wife or girlfriend or whatever has basically said, this is ridiculous. You have to get rid of a car. And now he has to do it, but he's not really very happy about it. So that's a really good thing. First off, he didn't want to get rid of the car. It wasn't like the car, it's unlikely that the car had a problem and now he's just going to try to get rid of it before it becomes costly. He did not want to part with this car. And that was my experience when I got there too, was that it was like he was trying to, okay, it's much more complicated than this, but for a simple model, we're basically two people. We're the person that we want to tell ourselves we are, and then we're what we actually are. And he's trying to tell himself that I have to sell this car. This is what I have to do. But, a little more unconsciously, it's like, I don't want to get rid of this car. So people will just like intuit reasoning that serves the unconscious goal that doesn't conflict with the conscious goal. So, a good person, and he seemed to be like straight up, Boy Scout type, should tell someone about, the problems with the car. But it really felt like he was trying to convince me not to buy it. Oh, shoot. And so every time he was trying to convince me not to buy it, it had the opposite effect of what he was looking for. Because the more he did that, the more I realized, and it was over little superficial things I really didn't give a crap about. It made me more convinced that this is a guy I want to buy a car from. And especially if somebody doesn't want to get rid of something, it just makes you want it more. So it's not all like not all psychology. I think most people would have probably picked up on this subconsciously and found the car more appealing without really necessarily understanding why. So it's not like I'm doing any kind of magic here. I also noticed in his garage, he was mid-30s, and there was no evidence of kids. Him and his, he did refer to his, or as his wife. There's no evidence they had kids because you'll see like bicycles or sports equipment or, there'll be evidence in a garage if there's kids living there. So I have a guy who basically, I'm pretty sure his wife put her foot down and said, you have 4 freaking cars in the driveway. You need to get rid of them or get rid of one of them. So it was kind of a Sophie's choice for him. And this was the older, and the other cars looked like they were well maintained, as far as I could tell. Also, I got the sense that he wasn't allowed to sit in a car with me for the test drive. And, he sort of said this, I can't remember how he phrased it, but I definitely got the sense that like, he thought this was kind of ridiculous too, but he had to go with it, that he would follow me in one of his other cars as I test drove it. And you know what? What do I know? Maybe maybe she's vulnerable. Maybe she has respiratory problems. Maybe she has an autoimmune thing. Like, I don't know what it is. So I didn't fault him at all. Like, hey, you do what you got to do. But it didn't, the fear I saw when I said, why don't you just ride with me? It wasn't fear of the coof. It was fear of letting the beans spill later that he didn't do what she had asked him. But super nice guy, super honest, straight up. Kind of stalled things out. First he couldn't find his wallet, and then he couldn't find his pen, and then like something with his printer was screwed up, and it was like a half hour of like random weird delays. And luckily I'd buffered in the time because I was doing this before I went to work. But all it did was just convince me more that this is a car that I should get. And hopefully I won't be doing a stream later about all the things that went wrong with it. And but it wasn't him, or I mean, I didn't notice anything majorly wrong with the car, like other than like there was a rear right wheel bearing that's a little noisy at highway speed. But I'm not going to be. I rarely go highway speed, and when I do, it's not for very long. So that could be fine for quite a while. And he just changed in the last 6 months or a year, or whatever, the tires, the clutch. It's 5-speed. Oh, I was talking about it earlier. Oh, and this car has the 5-speed like the older cars. I think I got derailed at one point instead of the motorcycle gearing. He was trying. Oh yeah, so you got the brakes, the clutch, and new tires. So like it was like he had just put money into it, like he was going to be driving it for a while, because that was probably half the value of the vehicle just right there. So. I'm sure he wasn't planning on selling it. This was this was imposed on him, at least as far as I could tell. He also had what was it? New shocks and struts, and he had the new wheel bearings. But since these weren't really, it was this suspension was a little bit mushy, but it was a high miles car, so it still held really good on the turn. It was just it wasn't like a new car, but you wouldn't expect it. So he had already purchased those, and when things got worse, he obviously was planning on changing those out. And he was like trying to give me the parts, like like it was like he was handing me his baby, and he's like, she really loves this blanket and this teddy bear. I almost felt sorry for him. It was really sad for him because he was invested in that car, like in an emotional way. I almost want to send him a message every 6 months or so and be like, your baby's still doing great. And, I probably will do something like that just because I know it'll make his day. Well, I guess the point was, understanding why people do what they do isn't just about spotting bad people. It's about spotting good people. And also opportunities. I'm the Expert Layman. This has been Grinding Meanings 17. Practical Psychology and Used Cars. You all have a great day.